So it's an amazing topic, as you see, and I have an amazing lineup of panelists here who will all give a short opening presentation. So since we are now 5, I will not introduce you. I would like to ask you to do this yourself because we would take too much time. And I think the first presentation is Nicolas.
Let's do it. So this is me. I'm an AI governance and safety veteran. I right now co-lead and co-founded the AI Safety Connect initiative, which is an initiative to work on international coordination on frontier AI safety, security, and risk management, but I also work in evaluation and verification technologies. And I'm the local, based in Paris, born and raised. What I want to talk about today, it's going to be quick. I guess my argument is going to be that for agentic AI to scale industrially, safety is actually the scaling layer. We're all building, we're all, some would say, industrially trifling. If we want to move at scale, it's going to require, because of the core technological recipe, stochastic systems, to which we give a number of tools, which are very difficult to explain at the core. Safety is going to become a boundary, a limiting factor, and we need to get over it. And that's something, a chance that Europe has. Like, one of the issues that we face is the tension between the fact that capability has converged, whereas governance has not converged on open weights models and open weights models-based agents. Like, we know that the gap between closed and open weights models is closing. Like, the capabilities that we're seeing at the frontier between closed and open models is closing, and it's closing fast. Some would say 3 to 6 months, some would say a year. A year is not that much. And so I think it's a recognized fact now that open weights releases are now genuine frontier artifacts. It's not the case in governance. Governance, I think, has diverged. There is no shared evaluation methodologies or thresholds. There are no agent verification standards. There are still no release discipline. And in the post-Mythos world, disseminating cyber offensive capabilities is a problem, especially when they can cause severe damage to cyber infrastructure. So this release discipline for open weights capabilities is going to soon become a problem, so much so a few days ago, even President Trump, who didn't want any regulation, is starting to imagine vetting from the administration before release of models, open or closed. And there is no cross-jurisdictional accountability for autonomous systems. So that tension is, I think, a source of immense innovation potential and industrial potential for Europe. What are our assets in Europe? Well, we know that we have talents and industrial depths. We Europeans are Airbus, we're Siemens, we're SAP, we are Stellantis, we are BMW, that's where we stand. And from a talent perspective, we still are quite good at research and excellent at innovation. We also have regulatory maturity. We have the EU Act, we have the Code of Practice, we have leverage. We have this into what I would frame as a governance stack. It's not only EU Act, it's DMA, it's DSA, it's the EU Office, it's regulatory power. And I think that we have a credible neutrality, as some would say, with the third way, in between where the chips and the closed models dominance is, the US, and increasingly where open weights model dominance is, which is China with DeepSeek, with Kimi, with Alibaba, which are doing fantastic work to make the weights travel where the data and the compute can't travel very well. The data don't travel very well. Compute increasingly at the frontier doesn't travel very well. Weights do. And so, in a way, my proposition, my message is that there are 3 things that we should build, and we can build, and we can lead globally. Number 1, agent verification infrastructure. That includes behavioral evaluation, as we've discussed with the previous panel, identity and authorization, but also the audit trail for autonomous systems. That is the price to pay to deploy the systems across what we say safety critical and mission critical functions, which is what powers Airbus, Sanofi, and Stellantis. It is something where, like Meta, Microsoft are not so expert, unlike others. Second, shared evaluation methodologies. And the EU AI office and the third-party evaluator network creates a baseline for that. Like, can we define and can we export capability and risk thresholds with cross-jurisdictional evidentiary basis? Yes, I think we can, and the code of practice in so many ways is a baseline for that. And third is that hopefully we are going to be able to contribute to what I would frame as open weight release discipline. It's not like a blind or stupid restriction on openness, because openness is a pathway to democratization, which we need, which is a chance for us Europeans to catch up, to play catch up, but to play wise catch up. But we need to reconcile that pursuit of openness with the governance stack. Otherwise, we are going to confront problems in the post-Mythos world that is going to be a potential showstopper for the open weights movement at the frontier. And so let me close with an idea. It's not a launch from AI Safety Connect. It's not an announcement. It's just an idea. Myself and others on the panel are members of the EU AI Office Frontier AI Expert Forum. And so there are conversations going on right now in Brussels in terms of federating efforts, compute, data, industrial capability to help Europe occupy a better position close to the frontier. Well, how about a European agent verification commons, which would indeed be plugged in the EU Frontier AI initiative? I think that there are threads and pieces coming together that can power that up, including the international scientific report that Joshua Benjo is chairing, who also co-chaired a Code of Practice EU track. And there is also the Singapore Consensus, which is the international scientific exchange on AI safety, which is, in a way, building and upgrading and updating on a regular basis a global AI safety research priority roadmap. So technical AI governance and science together pointing towards products and solutions. And all of that under the UN effort to build a UN global dialogue and land into artifacts. And because agent verifications and verification in general is going to remain a big problem to build at scale, I would say that's something that we European can build upon. I'll leave it at that and hand over the floor to the next speakers. Thank you so much.
Thanks. So my name is Slava Tikhanov, and I'm head of artificial intelligence at CoData. We're part of International Science Council, and I'm going to tell a little bit about our developments here. So the infrastructure that everybody is discussing right now, with verified credentials and with all this trust layer, we're already prototyping, and we're getting funding from European Union. So there are 6 projects actually already been funded. And we're building this infrastructure that including semantic layer, including governance layer, including trust layer, and we're able also to connect different projects together and build this collaboration that also allow to plug in AI agents, and they can basically communicate, they can exchange information, and we're also able to track what they're doing. And we're able to disconnect if they're getting something wrong, doing something wrong. So this is kind of a system which is open source, and everybody just can run, can also connect to us. And that's something that we want also to share with other countries. So something which is being funded by European Union is also being reused in other continents like Africa and Latin America. So what we're doing is called semantic croissant, and there are like 5 different layers. So first layer is called croissant for machine learning. And if you don't know what croissant is, I really advise you to take a look. There is a standard originally initiated by Google, and we're basically building a navigation system for AI. So if you want to know, for example, if you're driving a car and you want to know where to drive, so you're defining first city name and after like street name and building number. So basically, croissant does exactly the same for artificial intelligence, and you're happening in some place inside of vector cluster. And after that, we are using different layer. So this is semantic layer called cross-domain interoperability framework. And basically, it allows to see and to check what kind of resources are available, and all of them are ready. And at the same time, as soon as you will arrive to a specific point, there is DID, so decentralized identifier, is being discussed a lot here. It has verified credentials. So basically, we know who has created resource. It could be human, could be agent, or could be both. If you are basically running your IDE, like anti-gravity or Cloud, you can also assign this DID to your agent, and it's doing job. And basically, it's running some tasks, and you can see where it's failing. And if you're not happy, you can also disconnect. So basically, you're defining digital policy, and we're using really old standard. It's called ODRL, Open Digital Rights Language. And this is basically JSON-LD that allows to define all actions and also to define rules. So that's something that could be connected to tools and services, and this is how you can build the whole infrastructure in fully responsible way. So you are tracking all actions, see all interactions, you can go back to logs, you can check where agent is getting something wrong or it's not getting some information. And you can rely on really like responsible AI, which could be reproduced. So you can reproduce any experiment by using this infrastructure. So yeah, I already mentioned cross-domain interoperability framework. This is our semantic layer, and this is extremely important because you can connect it to any data repository, let's call it this way. You can connect also to AI models. You can use different AI models in collaboration so they can work together. And still, there is integration that allows to publish on Hugging Face, on basically in any place. You can also publish on GitHub some skills or some data in a restricted way, because as soon as some information is in your hands, you can also encode it, and by basically publishing it online with some encryption, nobody from outside will be able to decode it and read it. And that's the way how we see future collaboration is being happening, also with open data. So everybody is producing open data and everybody is talking about open data, but probably it's a bad idea that people just taking open data and basically training models and selling back to us because it's public funded, right? So thanks, and looking forward for a discussion.
Our next speaker is Haishu.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Haishu Chen. My current role is the CTO of Roswell International. Here is a brief introduction about myself. So in my career over the past 40 more years, I dominantly did four things. So when I graduated from university when I was 19, in my 20s, I did academic research and engineering. So the next phase is, I think, the longest. When I stepped into the ICT industry, I did a lot of architecture, solution architecture, enterprise architecture for large enterprises around Asia Pacific and globally. So in the last 10 years, before I retired from IBM, as the global lead and the Greater China Group CTO for open source and standard, I lead the standard and open source. So now I just moved to Europe and based in Amsterdam for about 2 months with ambition to promote the open source in Europe. So today I'm going to talk about the global collaboration and also the sovereignty Europeans want to achieve. Is this conflict? It's not. And sovereignty is not means isolation. So how you are going to do that? That's the open source. So I will walk through with you in the context of agentic AI. So what is the European strength? What is the challenge, dependencies? We all know European, a lot of innovation was in Europe. HTTP invented, and many mobile technologies was invented in Europe. But now we are still like in the frontier in terms of the agentic AI and other like AI technology research. We have excellent universities. But in terms of the commercialized, I think European in some domains is not leading, particularly in the current the agentic AI like frames, evaluation tools. So that probably what we need to think how we are going to deal with in Europe. We not only need to lead in academic research to produce a lot of papers, patents, we need to commercialize it. And so that's probably what we need to think and act now. But in terms of the supporting, how we are going to supporting the sovereignty, European is not like producing the concept or not only to develop the regulations. They have some really some foundations are being produced, such as the GRX for the data sovereignty, and also the HPC infrastructure to support the AI development things. So what is the major challenges? Now, if you look at the leading agentic AI frameworks, a lot of them are proprietary products. The beauty of the proprietary products, you can have the high security, performance, SLA, but the danger is vendor locking. So European, you can like you don't need to like build these things from scratch. You can participate the open source things. The open source, if you participate, participate in the governance, it helps you achieve all of those. So in one word, the agentic AI is developing very fast. It's happening. European need to act now, and the path is open source. Time is now. That will conclude my introduction. So I will hand over the talk to our next speaker and join the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you for staying for this presentation. It's already quite late. So today I will be essentially speaking about the EU AI Act and try to explain you the interplay with Agentic AI. So it's really a high-level introduction presentation. Before I do that, I will just explain who I'm working for. I'm working for the Open Mind Foundation. So what are they trying to do? They really believe that the next evolution of the of AI will come from private data. Why? Because private data is extremely variable. In the EU, we have a lot of private data. The problem is it's extremely sensible. So we need to find a solution whereby we can train those AI agents on this private data without the owners of this data losing control of it. So this is a technology we're developing through PETs, through the famous concept where we bring the compute to the data and not the other way around. If you're interested, check our website. Okay, check our website. So now, going to the subject. So in fact, the AI Act covers Agentic AI. Clearly, so if anyone tells you that the EU AI Act doesn't cover Agentic AI, it's actually wrong. There's no legal definition of Agentic AI. That's perfectly true. But it's covered by the concept of AI system. If you read the definition, which was actually invented here in Paris by the OECD, by the way, I want to say it, it clearly covers it. So what do we need to look at in order to understand the interplay between Agentic AI and the EU AI Act? Well, first we need to look at how it's built, as seen from the legal and legislative perspective. Does it include a GPAI model, which in the real world we call it a large language model? Most of the time, yes. Does it include a GPAI models which is extremely capable or extremely powerful, so in concrete terms, a frontier AI model? Most of the time, yes. And today, if you look at the law in the EU AI Act, it's not just the Googles and the Anthropic and the OpenAI, even open source software, which is produced by Chinese companies or by Mistral, can qualify as GPAI models with systemic risks, according to the EU AI Act. And that's very important because actually, if you build an AI agent and you include some frontier AI model in the engine of your AI agents, you benefit from, you have rights vis-a-vis of the provider of the frontier AI system. So if you use the Claude or if you use the Gemini or open source, you have actually rights. Those providers needs to give you enough information, so as a provider of these AI agents, you can comply yourself to the regulation. The third bullet point is probably the most important. So if you build AI agents and you include those models, it's typically open source, and if you do extensive modifications, so if you typically do some fine-tuning or if you retrain it, then you're not just going to be a provider of AI systems or AI agents, you're going also to be a provider of GPAI models or frontier AI models, and then you have another set of obligations. Right, so how it's built is actually important, and what you do and how you modify it is very important too. It will really determine what are your obligations. So the second thing to look at is how the agent is used. So the AI Act clearly foresees a number of banned use cases. So if your agent is crossing the border and using those use cases, you're clearly illegal. So I have 0 minutes, so I will conclude. The second thing is the transparency obligations. You have in some specific cases, you need to tell the user you're an AI. You need to watermark audio and video, and you need to label text if it's of public interest. And then the last point is it high risk or not? There are high risk use cases in the AI Act, and of course, if your use case is high risk, you are going to be high risk. And there's a number of sets of obligations. The main one is conformity assessment. So you have to follow a procedure. You have to do a self-assessment of a risk analysis, and you have to document it so it can be audited at a further stage. So I will stop here. You can read the conclusion, but in essence, the more autonomous your agent is, the more important is to put in place a scrutiny, to have logins in place, so that and to have clear accountability rules. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe just let me start with a brief introduction. So my name is Bart Kubiak. I am building New Intelligence Center for Emerging Risks. This is an AI safety institution based out of Warsaw and Berlin that is focused on the alignment science and also has a public sector consulting arm. So what we are focusing on as well is the actual implementation of research within governmental institutions. And I wanted to talk to you a bit about the alignment agents and open source. Okay, so let me start by this, which I would start with anyway. So when we think about alignment, we mostly think about the technical research. We mostly think about it in the pure machine learning sense, which is essentially, does the model or does the specific agent follow the set of objectives or the policies it was supposed to follow, and can it do it reliably? We think this is a very wrong view. Since the alignment encompasses so many different other visions and other sort of points of impact that it cannot be simply put as a simple technical research, perspective. So from our point of view at NICER, we also focus not only on the technical research. Yeah, so you just have to imagine a huge triangle in which the lower bottom corner is the technical research. The right bottom corner is the philosophy, is the normative foundations, is the why we want certain agents and certain models to follow certain rules and on what grounds. And the final sort of the bottom point would be the governance structure. So what specific sort of regulations, treaties, architectures, standards should it follow? And only then can it produce a reasonable view on the alignment. So how does it work at all with both the agents and the open source structure? I think one of the major examples of the sort of misunderstanding alignment in agents per se is the fact, as one of my previous speakers said, like there is no sort of legal or whatsoever definition of an agent. So from the ontological perspective in philosophy, meaning the study of the being, I do not even know what am I interacting with. So how am I supposed to sort of call for it in the public space? How am I supposed to regulate it? How am I supposed to sort of describe its functioning with other elements of the society, of the system? So purely focusing on technical research here, when in terms of the agents, escapes that very basic thing of what am I interacting with. When it comes to the sort of open source technology, I think it's even a better example of how alignment is sort of misunderstood. Most, if not all, of the popular sort of benchmarks and evaluations, they focus on the sort of Anglo-Saxon world and Anglo-Saxon literature. Even if you use, like, I'm Polish, so it doesn't use most of the times my sort of natural language. It uses the translated versions of it. But how it translates those words, with what meaning does it carry, what sort of values does it represent, is another question. It cannot simply be represented by the technical research. So, since we cannot show the broader presentation, let me stop here, and then maybe if you have any further questions throughout the panel, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you to all the speakers. As you see, this is the most spontaneous panel discussion that you have ever experienced. Now we're actually going to a panel discussion. I'm Mirko Böhm. I work for the Linux Foundation Europe. The Linux Foundation has various activities in the space of AI. We host the Agentic AI Foundation and the MCP protocol and many other activities, including some of the underlying technical foundations like PyTorch. So, yeah. And as part of that work, I spend a lot of time in Brussels. And this panel is about how does Europe need to adapt to the development of agentic AI. And we have prepared this opening question that all the panelists are aware of. And I would like to give all the panelists the opportunity to briefly answer this question with a statement. Why don't we start from the left?
Okay, so as I explained, I think I tried to convince you that we have the law, clearly. So we have the base, it's necessary, it's probably not sufficient. So the next thing would be probably to come up with clearer guidelines. So you know, the real world can understand those legislation in practical cases. This is typically what the Commission is doing, and I'm sure they will be doing, but probably they're so busy now, they have so many things to do. But this is probably the other thing, and probably we need a real project, some kind of a Airbus for AI. And again, you know, things have changed considerably since Airbus was started. We now have laws, we have ways of doing that in a much better way. It's a matter of political will.
Well, I think these three things have to be done structurally differently. The first one is that we probably need to quit trying to win the top layer. We've lost on SaaS because of distribution and scale. We are and remain a fragmented market. Instead of going and running after Alibaba or running and going after Microsoft, let's look at where we can win. And I think that trying to stay within the stack at layers where distribution and scale are not the a natural failing point of factor is something where we can add. That takes me to my second point. If we don't go at the top, like really focus on the layer where we can win, which I think is trust and verification. I think that, as I said in my presentation, the EU AI Act gives us leverage, but that's not sufficient. We need to build upon that leverage. Evaluation, verification, auditability. These are words you've heard in the mouth of at least 3 or 4 of the speakers here, that the Act gives us leverage. Let's use it to actually build infrastructure, the trust infrastructure. And that's why I propose as an example, as a thought experiment, this verification commons. And third, less discussed, but very important, buying differently. I think that public procurement and finding ways to leverage the way in which public, if it's going to be trusted, AI agentic, I think we can use it for trade facilitation, for policing, for healthcare, for transportation. And in many ways, we have a strong public sector in Europe, so leveraging the public sector to buy trusted agentic AI system is something where we can, probably give a leg to our players to move from trifling, as we say in French, le bricolage, into real industrial scale deployments. Voilà.
No, I'm representing research data infrastructure here, so probably my point of view will be a bit unusual for you, but I also think that we have to build a digital policy which will be actionable. If we have laws, probably we can also express all these laws as a policy, which will be understood both by humans and both by AI agents. So we should be able also to disconnect agents. We should be able also to basically to send them on with pension if they are already not doing the right job, and probably they can use the experience that they're collecting to train new models, to produce new agents. So that's something we're trying to produce right now as a part of a European-funded project called Horizon 2020, and we have some success on this. Thank you.
So I witnessed European invention. I think it's driven by a lot of investment, funding a lot of projects, produce a lot of papers, patents. But I think there are lack of investment in open source. But European has very good tradition to contribute to open source, even some like the idea TTP things. But if you only contribute, you not participate in the governance, you cannot lead. And if you only measure the value for paper citation, you don't measure on the technology open source adoption, you will never produce the commercialized leading agentic AI frameworks. So that probably something need to change. In terms of the regulation sector, in the past, European, I think, released a lot of regulations. That's on paper. That's read by human, by lawyers. Then how enterprise can comply? You need a lot of effort. If you put the investment in supporting tooling in open source project by compliance by default, that will change the regulation from a burden to an enablement, to enable the trustworthiness and easy adoption. So I think that probably something Europe need to think. Not only participate in open source, but participate in governance, even host the open source in Europe, like currently the Eclipse Foundation. They are creating the ADL, which is a leading area, I'm happy to see. So I think if we can invest in a few domains around open source I mentioned, the open source will be an enabler to help Europe change the current situation structurally.
Working almost a decade on European regulations like taught me one thing: there is no such thing as singular Europe or European Union. There is 27 different countries, and everybody wants to pull in their own direction. So, considering Europe as a singular bloc, I think is wrong from that perspective, because it speaks to the cooperation, to the state aid, and so on and so on. But I think where Europe can compete, actually, especially like with the agents, is in finding its own competitive edge. As some of you have said before, regulation is not a burden. It can be a premium product. If our product satisfies certain minimum standards, which are already the highest in the world, that makes it a luxury product. Like we're not supposed to create another Tesco like ChatGPT is, for example, which is widely available cheap commercial product. We can focus on more specialized agents and specialized systems. It can be smaller, but designed, for example, for high-risk scenarios that require certain trust, certain safety protocols, and certain regulations to protect it. So just pick your battles and then try to win them. Do not compete where you simply don't have enough power to do so.
Thank you. Quite openly, I come from an open source background. I worked in open source long before AI became the topic of the day. And I have a déjà vu moment. Because we're saying so many contributors, researchers, papers, academic papers come from Europe. We just published some numbers in the Cloud Native Computing Foundation where more than 40% of all contributions come from the member states of the European Union. We're the biggest global contributor to these technologies. However, almost all of the big tech companies aren't in Europe. So what I'm hearing is better regulation, pick your battles, build a champion, if I hear that correctly. And I think we've all heard these arguments before in the last 3 technology cycles. And the bottom sentence of the question is, what needs to be structurally different? What do we need to do different this time to be able to lead in agentic AI? So I'm going to raise the bar a little bit and say, let's try this one more time. Let's not make the same recommendations as we did the last 3 technology cycles. What can we do structurally differently?
But I'm sorry, but we have already things that we can better use. So we have this concept of a legal sandbox. We have this concept of real-world testing. So it's actually wrong to say that you cannot do anything because we have too much regulations. You can't escape the regulations. We have the legal sandbox. We have the real-world testing with real-world users. So we have mechanism to actually do that. So it is a matter of reaching gradual mass and getting there. And probably financing is very important, extremely important. And yeah.
I don't think you fathom what he said properly.
No, I probably oversimplified.
Yeah, that's what you said is important. Yet Europe does not exist as a market. Europe does not exist as a political status, whereas China does, and the US does. And so for us to chase, why you keep on hearing the political authorities here talk about, we need to deliver on the capital union, to bring, we don't have pension funds. So this investment limit, when I said distribution and scale, it pertains to the number of, where is the IPO happening in Europe? No, because we don't have a common market. So, and so by doing structurally is aspirationally, we want Europe to exist, but it does not exist yet. So how are we going to move at the speed of what we actually do and operate from where we really are at? That's why, in my case, in my little echo chamber or bubble, I'm like, okay, keeping in mind that, okay, I think every version verification is sufficiently big global layers. We have regulatory landscape, regulatory leverage. Boom, focus on that. That's in a way being realistic. Are we going to have a European Google or Meta or Alibaba? No. Can we actually deliver to protect Airbus in the age of agentic AI? Yes. How we do that? For example, we have a CERN in Switzerland. Could we project ourselves, here's the crazy proposition for you, a multinational consortium at Airbus, where actually France, the UK, Europe, not Union, but Europe, and Germany, and others around it, would actually pool compute resources to actually train not frontier, but close to frontier models that would then be distributed commercially by Airbus. They would not, the consortium would only do pre-training experiments and RL experiments, and actually this would be deployed commercially, strategically, and fine-tuned, and other smaller scale experiments by others. Putting on the table a couple of billions, something like 10 to, more than a couple, 10 to 20, to do that, but not 500. Like the whole package would take us at Stargate level, $500 billion. I think for 20 we can start to show sub-frontier in the smaller model niches that we can build like sovereign capabilities a la Mythos. Do Europeans have access to Mythos? No. How do we create in our cyber defensive way access to these capabilities? So and that's why he was talking about this kind of new type of projects, but accounting for not what Europe would want to be, but what Europe is today with all its weaknesses and limits.
Very good point. I will give the other speakers a chance to answer in a second. So one thing I hear is scale, and I just got a 5-minute warning. So we will not get to the other 15 questions that we had prepared. But one of these 15 questions was, this is a battle for scale. The compute resources are starting to be severely limited. Even just storage for the output is currently a growth limiting factor. So your suggestion is a cross-European consortium that pools investment. How do we compete at scale, when it comes to scale, in the market that currently goes for the biggest is the winner?
So I don't think we need to compete against Google and OpenAI. It's kind of impossible. We don't have so many resources. But what we can offer is actually quality. So we can turn all these LM models, which are not non-deterministic. Everybody knows that. But we can introduce ground truth, which is signed with digital credentials. It's verifiable. You can track provenance. You can get the region. And basically, it's kind of making compute not even essential. You can rely on kind of ground truth information, which is making agents completely reliable, and you can reproduce things. So that's the point. Instead of like doing compute, like what they do, we can rely on opinions of people and opinions of experts, and we can use it to produce really high quality stuff here in Europe.
Okay, so pool investments, better quality.
I think a few dimensions. You mentioned the if you compare to the other economy, other geographies, I think European currently from the market perspective is fragmented. So if you want to change like scale, you need to have like a whole market maybe perspective. That probably need some policy level changes. All the procurement changes, such as you promote the open source be procured in certain industry sectors. So that probably can produce something like Google, because European it did have some great companies. For example, in ERP field, we have SAP. In the car manufacturer, many like manufacturers were leading very like for decades. Why we need to think in the agentic AI era, we are behind. For example, compared to some like the big, most adopted model like producers. I think from the open source perspective, European always like contribute, produce a lot of inventions. Then you need to think about how to leverage the market to turn the open source contribution into commercialized products.
Thank you.
I think I have like 30 seconds wrap up. Europe doesn't need to change. Europe is great as it is. But we need to embrace different things. If you want to play the game, you have to change the rules of business, basically. Our companies, like you all know 11 Labs, right? It's like they were founded in Poland 2 years after they were in the UK, 1 year later than we're in the US. Not because like it's sunnier in the Bay Area. But like I know the founders, they love Poland and they love being here, but they simply cannot make money there. There is no access to capital. We're not simply suited to this pace and to this magnitude of funds. Of course, we could do it publicly, which could be another idea. This is what Europe is technically sort of good at, but that requires some other sacrifices and probably sort of slower pace of development. But again, what I would say, no need to change. Just embrace a different type of thinking, and then maybe we'll be happier with what we have.
All right, thank you. If you could change one thing in European policy, what would it be? And this should be your closing statement. Please answer, if you can, in one sentence, maybe two.
Well, I would incentivize the use of private data for AI training more effectively through the adequate policies, because this is where the future is. This is how we can make our AIs, through AI agents, more performant. So, yeah, that's what I would go for.
One sentence, tough, but I'll try. Real industrial policy in the age of AI, in the age of agentic AI. So, and these words matter, in the age of agentic AI. Meaning SAP could be on the menu as much as it is on the table. If we don't do anything, they're going to be on the menu, disrupted by agentic AI. If we do something, they can be a winner.
Well, I would say less bureaucracy, more innovation.
Invest and lead in open source.
I love that.
Public-private partnerships. Understand them, execute them, and then compete with them.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you to the panelists. Thanks for the most spontaneous panel discussion the whole day. Thanks to the audience.